Let's take a journey to 15th century France and kick the English army's butt in Jeanne d'Arc.
Really hoping that I pronounced that correctly. Anyways, here's a look at the packaging. I always love it when PSP games have inner cover art. You would think that all games would do this since they have transparent cases, but sadly, that is not the case. This RPG is loosely based on the story of Joan of Arc. Jeanne and Leanne find a fallen soldier near a church, and Jeanne decides to check his body. When she opens up a pouch he was carrying, a strange armlet wraps itself around her arm. Before they have a chance to figure out what has happened, monsters attack from the nearby forest. After fighting them off, they return to their village and find that the English army is burning everything in sight. A mysterious voice tells Jeanne to hold the armlet in the air, and when she does, she transforms into a powerful being. With this newfound power, Jeanne and her friends decide to march through France and drive out the English army. Obviously, they have taken some liberties with the story here. There were no monsters in France. Well, you can argue that the English army were monsters, but I mean that there were no actual monsters. There are some interesting characters and some really nice plot twists scattered throughout. Overall, it's a pretty good story that I enjoyed quite a bit. When first booting up the game, you'll be treated to a gorgeous and lengthy animated cutscene. There are plenty of these throughout the adventure, and they can be viewed again from the menu whenever you wish. The graphics in Jeanne d'Arc are nice as well. Everything is bright and colorful, and there are some wonderful character portraits. One complaint I do have though is the fact that they decided to use Chibi character models. This would go on to be very common in PSP and 3DS games, and I'm not a fan. I've seen much worse Chibi characters, but would have loved it if they just used models that more closely resembled the character art. Combat plays pretty much like most other tactical RPGs. In this one, the player gets to move and act with all their characters, and then the enemy gets to do the same with their own troops. You will find the normal combat options of attacking, using items, and casting magic. But Jeanne and any other armlet wearers also have a transform option that they can select after a gauge is filled up. Selecting this automatically heals the character's hit points, gives a boost to their stats, and lets them use some devastating attacks. In addition to this, they can also do something called Godspeed, which will grant that party member an extra turn upon defeating an enemy. This may sound like a broken mechanic, but the developers did a great job balancing out the battles, which will prevent players from routing the enemy within a few turns. A couple of other unique things about the combat are Burning Aura and Unified Guard. Whenever you use a physical attack against an enemy, a glowing circle will appear on the opposite side. If one of your party members stands inside this aura, they will receive a nice boost to their attack. On the defensive side, Unified Guard rewards you for keeping your units close together, which is pretty much the opposite of what you'd normally do in other tactical RPGs. Mastering the transformations, Unified Guard, and Burning Auras are critical to your success in this game. Now let's talk about one of the few flaws this game has, an arbitrary turn limit. Every single battle you take part in has a limit to how many turns you can take to finish the encounter. This can be irritating sometimes, especially with a battle condition requiring you to get all party members to a certain point on the map. Even if you defeat all the enemies, you can still lose because you don't get everyone to the appropriate tile on time. It's an odd design choice that can make some fights really annoying. It doesn't completely ruin the experience, but it would have been better if they left it out. When the battle is over, you'll be able to level grind on old maps, shop, and outfit your party with new armor and skill stones. Skill stones are frequently dropped by defeated enemies, and can grant stat boosts or new magic and skills. Once you get to a certain point in the game, you'll be able to feed your frog a couple of skill stones, which will combine them into a new ability. This is definitely worth experimenting with, as some stones can only be acquired this way. The soundtrack in Jeanne d'Arc is pretty good. While nothing stands out to me as amazing, there are some nice memorable tracks to be found here. All the cutscenes feature full English voice acting, and is also done very well. Since the game does take place in France, everyone speaks with a French accent, and they all sound pretty good. Jeanne d'Arc is a great tactical RPG with a nice story, interesting characters, and some fun and somewhat challenging combat. If you'd like to buy this game, you can find used copies on eBay for anywhere between $10 to $25. It's also available on the PlayStation Store for $15, although you'll have to download it on your PC or PS3 and then transfer it over to your PSP. It's definitely an RPG worth owning, and probably the best exclusive tactical RPG on the system. And that will do it for this one. As always, I want to thank you guys very much for watching, and I will see you next time.